The billionaire's daughter sat still until she witnessed a black maid achieve the unthinkable. In the heart of a mansion so lavish it seemed to be torn from a dream, the air crackled with an electric urgency. Candles flickered like nervous fireflies, casting shadows that danced across marble floors, and the grand chandelier glittered overhead, as if conspiring to reveal the secrets of the night. At the center of it all was Ivy Harrington, the billionaire's daughter, perched on the edge of her seat, eyes wide and breath caught in her throat. She was accustomed to extravagance, but what unfolded before her was something altogether different, something pulsating with an energy so raw it was almost palpable that a hush fell like a heavy blanket over the opulent gathering. Guests whispered in wonder, their champagne flutes frozen mid-air, as a figure stepped into the light from the shadows. A maid, dressed in simple black and white, but radiating a fierce determination that eclipsed the wealth surrounding her. It was as if she had woven courage into the very fabric of her uniform. Ivy had never seen anything like it. This was not just a woman, she was a force in action. As the maid, whose name nobody seemed to know, positioned herself before the imposing crowd, Ivy leaned forward. The air thickened with anticipation. A flicker of fear crossed the room, a silent acknowledgement that something rare was about to happen. The maid lifted her chin defiantly, her dark skin glistening under the light, contrasting sharply with the pale silk of the guest's attire. Ivy couldn't take her eyes off the intensity burning within her. The whispering around her swelled. What does she think she is doing? This is madness. But the maid's presence silenced their murmurs, drawing them into a trance, but then just like that, it happened. The maid, with courage that sparked like kindling into flame, spoke words that seemed to pierce the very heart of the gilded gathering. "Tonight, I challenge everything," she declared, her voice trembling yet loud enough to resonate through the vast hall. The gasps were instantaneous. Ivy swore she could almost feel the collective pulse of disbelief. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Ivy's heart raced as the maid's words hung thick in the air, thick like fog, heavy with both promise and peril. What did she mean? Did she truly believe she could upturn the very foundations of their world? Conversations buzzed with a frenzied energy, eyes darting between the maid and the transfixed Ivy. Gasps morphed into uncertainty, then explosive whispers morphed into a swelling wave of anticipation, but just as the tension reached a boiling point, something shifted. The lights flickered ominously, plunging the room into a momentary darkness, and an unholy hush shrouded them all. A sense of foreboding brushed against Ivy's skin like a chill, and her heart thudded furiously in her chest. What dark twist of fate awaited them? Would this bold act be met with applause or horror? Everything hung precariously in the balance, and Ivy could only stare, breathless, as the strange aura of the night began to twist into something inexplicable, something truly unthinkable. The darkness clung tightly to the room like a shroud, and for a moment, even Ivy's breath caught in her throat. As the lights flickered back to life, everyone looked at the maid, and she was still standing resolutely, defiance burning in her eyes. Those eyes flickered with emotion, their depths holding dreams and despair, a raw cocktail of longing for change. "What do you mean, challenge everything?" Ivy whispered to herself, a bead of sweat trickling down her back. Her customary world of creams and golds, infallible wealth, began to swirl with questions. There was an unfamiliar raw energy in the air, a charge that left her skin tingling. The guests cast nervous glances at each other, uncertainty lingering like a storm about to break. The maid took a deep breath, as if summoning a storm within herself. "I refuse to be the invisible woman. I refuse to allow my voice to remain unheard." Her words sliced through the tension, igniting chatter among the guests. Ivy watched, heart racing, as the atmosphere shifted. It was electric, like the moment before a lightning strike. In the corner of the room, Mrs. Harrington, Ivy's mother, adjusted her diamond-encrusted bracelet with a sudden keen interest, eyebrows knitting together. "This is unacceptable," she exclaimed, whispering more than declaring. But the maid continued, undeterred, and Ivy felt an unexpected wave of admiration rising within her. "Your privilege blinds you. You think you know power, but power is in the love you take for one another. It's justice, not greed." The maid's voice rang out, transforming the gathering into a tableau of bewildered expressions. A trembling intensity filled Ivy's being. The world around her suddenly felt starkly divided: on one side, the shimmering wealth of her father's empire, and on the other, the raw truth that was unfurling before her. Guests were whispering, some shaking their heads, others scoffing. One man scoffed loudly, "Who does she think she is?" But the maid stood her ground, her back straight, vulnerability cloaked in resilience. "Your laughter speaks of fear, fear of the unknown, fear of change." She leveled, eyes sweeping over the entire crowd. The whispers faded momentarily, people were frozen, caught between shock and the awakening realization of truth. Ivy felt her skin prickle as she witnessed the very foundations of their world begin to tremor. The maid's presence invoked something larger than arrogance. It revealed a seam of humanity beneath layers of opulence. In that moment, Ivy caught her own reflection in the ornate mirror hanging nearby. Who was she within this chaos? A shimmer of doubt flickered, making her anxious stomach twist. Yet, right then, something strange blossomed in her heart. Could she step away from her gilded cage? She barely whispered it to herself, "What if I?" But a sudden crash echoed from somewhere deep within the party. What was that? Someone screamed, eyes wide, anchoring the tension higher. Ivy's heart stopped. The maid, sensing the shift, turned, her confidence momentarily faltering. Had her boldness reminded someone of dark secrets? The room held its breath. Outside, the wind howled against the mansion's fragile facade, almost as if nature itself were aligning with this strange night. Ivy was acutely aware of every heartbeat, every drop of sweat. Something monumental loomed just out of sight. What would this night reveal? Before she could press further into that thought, the lights cut again, this time a long, oppressive darkness engulfing them all. Anxiety coursed through Ivy's veins like wildfire. The air grew thick, and then, just as suddenly, she heard the unmistakable sound of hurried footsteps. Who would dare to intrude now? As the lights flickered back on, she held her breath, dread knotting her gut. What awaited them in that suffocating silence? What secrets would fracture this night even further? The tension snapped, leaving Ivy teetering on the edge of fear and curiosity. But would she have the courage to leap into the unknown? The lights flickered on again, revealing a room drenched in confusion and tension. Ivy squinted, trying to make sense of the aftermath of chaos. The sudden light illuminated faces twisted with disbelief. A woman gasped near the back, while another guest clutched her pearls in horror. Ivy could feel the weight of their collective uncertainty pressing down. Then she saw him, the butler, Mr. Thompson, his face pallid, eyes wide with fear as he emerged through the crowd. He faltered a step, clearly taken aback by the intensity of the scene. What happened? He stuttered, moving toward the maid. What is going on? The maid, still unwavering, fixed her fierce gaze on him, as if daring him to undermine her brave stand. I am not afraid to speak the truth, she declared again, her voice rising with conviction. No one dared to scoff this time. The electricity in the air felt almost tangible, like static before a storm, but just as Ivy thought the tension would shatter, the light sparked again, plunging them into darkness once more. A deep dread gnawed at Ivy's insides. She could hear muffled gasps, the shuffling of feet attempting to ground themselves in the chaos. What was happening? Shadows danced around her as she tentatively reached for the edge of the table for stability. A hand brushed against hers, Mrs. Harrington's, trembling. Ivy. We need to get out of here. But Ivy's heart raced, a primal curiosity to stay, to discover the truth. Could this be the night everything changed? Could she empower herself and those around her? Her mother's panicked voice nagged at her but felt distant, like an echo of a past self. Then, just as fast, the lights returned, a surreal brightness engulfing them, cutting through the darkness. But instead of warmth, shock rippled through the room like icy dread. A figure lay sprawled on the floor, a man in a crisp black suit, motionless. Gasps echoed, people instinctively stepping back in fear, the air heavy with disbelief. "It's Mr. Green." An unfamiliar voice shouted from the crowd. Ivy's heart raced. Mr. Green was a towering figure in her father's company. His death would spiral into implications Ivy couldn't begin to fathom. What happened? Ivy breathed, barely forming the words. She could hardly process the crumbling world around her. When the maid moved toward Mr. Green, Ivy watched her every step. Was she rushing into danger or stepping into fate? The maid knelt, testing for a pulse. "Someone call an ambulance," she shouted, authority lacing her voice, before looking up at Ivy with an intensity that pierced through the chaos. "Help me." Help? Ivy was frozen. Did she belong in this broken moment? A sudden compulsion to step forward surged through her, igniting the fire within. She felt reality shift. The once opaque veil of her opulent life was beginning to tear. As people scrambled to find their phones amidst hysteria, Ivy looked at the maid, now a beacon of defiance in an overwhelming storm. Was this justice or chaos playing out in vivid snapshots? Ivy wasn't sure which. Uncertainty loomed like a curtain blocking her from what lay ahead. "Do you see it now, Ivy?" The maid called, a throaty challenge ringing out over the murmur. "Do you see what's important?" Ivy's heart thudded louder than before. This night had morphed into something unrecognizable. The dinner party that was meant to showcase extravagance had turned into a battleground of truths desperately fought for. With the weight of all eyes on her, Ivy felt one immutable truth crystallizing in her mind: she could no longer stand still. If anyone was going to change the unfolding narrative, it was going to be her, but would she dare to take that first step into the chaos? Just then, a chilling thought struck her: what had really happened to Mr. Green? And what dark alliances still loomed in this mansion, waiting to be uncovered? A rush of adrenaline flooded Ivy's veins as she finally took a step forward, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. The crowd murmured, their glances darting between her and the maid, now kneeling beside Mr. Green, her hands working feverishly. Ivy felt the expectations of the room suffocating her. As if the air itself had thickened into a fog, clinging to her skin. "What do I do?" she whispered out loud, though the words were more for herself than anyone else. "Do something," Mrs. Harrington hissed, a wild look in her eyes. She was pacing nervously. "He can't just lie there, he needs help." A part of Ivy wanted to bolt, to run from the suffocating weight of everyone's gaze and the dreadful scene unfolding. But another part, this fierce, tenacious part, pushed her forward. She was tired of living in the shadows. Ivy knelt alongside the maid, who shot her a piercing look. "Hold his head steady," she ordered, voice steady despite the chaos around her. Ivy swallowed hard. She did as she was told. The man's body felt heavy, lifeless, and dread wrapped around her throat. "What did you do to him?" She wanted to shout, but the question burned her lips, unanswered. The chaotic thoughts of hidden grudges and secrets swirled in her mind like a tempest. The maid, her expression unyielding, began to press the man's chest rhythmically. "Stay focused," she instructed, her breath steady and measured. "I will not let him die here." In that moment, Ivy saw something raw in the maid's eyes, a flicker of hope battling against despair. What drove the maid to fight for a man who, on the surface, held so much power? With every push, Ivy felt a connection, one woman to another with no bounds of class or race. Each beat of Mr. Green's heart echoed a question in her mind: what was it that bound them all together in this lavish, suffocating prison? Is anyone calling for help? Ivy shouted, desperate, her voice piercing through the shroud of panic. A couple of guests were on their phones, but it felt like forever. Keep doing that. The maid demanded, breathless, her face glistening with effort. He doesn't have much time. A moment of deafening silence fell over the room before a man's voice broke through, shaking. What's happening? Why isn't anyone doing anything? Get us some space. The maid barked. Stand back. Ivy felt the tension ripple through the crowd as guests reeled back, their eyes wide with fear and curiosity. Ivy dared a glance at Mr. Green's face, the once proud features now twisted in an expression she couldn't decipher. Stay with me, Mr. Green. The maid cried, desperation lacing her voice as if she were reaching out to demand retribution against fate itself. Ivy's heart ached seeing that underlying desire for life, for justice. What had this man done to them? To her? And then, just when hope flickered brightest, a sudden crackling sound surged through the air, followed by a tormenting thud. The lights dimmed again, plunging the room into darkness. Screams broke out, a cacophony of fear. Watch out! Ivy's heart stalled as she felt the chilling breath of fear wash over her. Would this night claim one more life? Her hands trembled on Mr. Green's head, and a sinking feeling settled in the pit of her stomach. In the pitch gloom, the maid screamed, "Don't stop! Somebody, call the police!" Would she remain a prisoner to this endless night? Would the truth come to light, or linger in the shadows, hidden just like the secrets they all carried? Ivy's resolve tightened. The chaos around her spun, but amidst all the terror, she felt a surge of determination. I will find out the truth, she swore silently. No more running. The air grew heavy with anticipation, a promise about to unfold. What would happen when the truth finally surfaced? And how would it change everything she believed? A deafening silence hung in the air, every breath and heartbeat drowning in the darkness. Ivy's fingers trembled as she continued to hold Mr. Green's head steady, while the maid's hands moved like a metronome, relentless and determined. Just beyond the veil of pitch black, chaos thrummed with a life of its own. Someone do something! A woman's voice shrieked. Ivy recognized her as one of the gala's organizers, her panic mixing with the rising tension that seeped into the very walls of the hall, but Ivy couldn't think of them, couldn't think of anything but the rhythm of the maid's hands against Mr. Green's chest. Each compress echoed in Ivy's ears, a frantic desire clashing against the looming dread. Suddenly, the lights flickered, illuminating their surroundings for a split second before plunging them back into shadows. Ivy caught brief glances of horrified faces, some frozen, others scrambling, all stricken by fear. Focus! The maid shouted, her voice breaking through the fear like a siren. We're close. Just a bit longer. But how much longer? Ivy felt the weight of the world pressing on her, the outcome hanging in the balance. With every beat, she could sense the anger creeping in, the anger towards Mr. Green for being here in the first place, surrounded by the very people who had to depend on the kindness of others. What secrets lay beneath that facade? She thought, a chill racing down her spine in the darkness, and then sudden shouting. Swerving, she caught sight of a figure pushing through the crowd, illuminated by the fleeting glow of the emergency lights that flickered from the exit signs. Get back, everyone! He yelled, and it was Jason, the security guard. His face was twisted into a mask of determination. We have to clear the way. Where have you been? Ivy hissed, fury rolling off her in waves. Help us. I'm on it, he replied tersely, his gaze locking onto Mr. Green's helpless form. He pushed his way next to the maid without hesitation, hitting the ground in one powerful motion. Ivy watched with a mix of hope and helplessness as Jason joined the frantic rhythm, working alongside the maid. Their frantic movements intertwined like a well-rehearsed dance, but the frantic energy surrounding the room screamed that this was far from a performance. Suddenly, the lights burst back into brilliance. The dazzling ball, a panorama of grandeur, now felt surreal in contrast to the chaos. People stood panicking in every corner, their faces etched with horror. Ivy's breath caught in her throat when she finally dared to look at Mr. Green again. His face, once pale and etched with pain, now revealed something entirely unexpected, a shadow of a smirk, fleeting but unmistakable. The moment slammed into Ivy like a freight train. What was happening? Why was he smiling? It made no sense, and that shattered sense of reason fell into a spiral of chaos in her mind. A sickening realization washed over her. What if this was all an act? The maid's efforts and Jason's determination echoed in her ears, but the fleeting smile on Mr. Green's face twisted into something menacing. A whisper crawled through her thoughts. Was this his way of keeping them all bound to his will, even in a life-and-death struggle? Just then, the heavy doors of the hall burst open, and in walked a pair of uniformed officers, their faces imposing and serious. They frantically scanned the room, taking in the panic and the chaos. "What is going on here?" one demanded. Ivy's heart raced once again. The arrival of law enforcement meant that the facade was about to be stripped bare. Truth would claw its way to the surface, but at what cost? With every passing heartbeat, the truth hovered just out of reach. Secrets were held tightly beneath their gilded masks, and the entire room held its breath, waiting for revelation, but would they ever be ready for what was about to unravel? As the officers advanced, Ivy steeled herself. The night was far from over. The truth would emerge, and when it did, she would be ready no matter what darkness it revealed. The officers moved swiftly through the crowd, their presence commanding attention and drawing gasps from onlookers. Ivy could hear whispers ripple around her, fragments of conversations laden with uncertainty. "What happened?" someone asked, panic lacing every syllable. "Is he dead?" came another voice, trembling and raw. Ivy's chest tightened as she tried to keep her gaze locked on Mr. Green. The smirk on his lips persisted, a taunting reminder of the twisted game they were all part of. The maid's compressions quickened, and Jason's voice cut sharply through the panic. "Clear a path. We need room. He might still have a chance." As the officers approached them, Ivy could see the uncertainty etched on their faces. A hand raised from one of the officers, signaling for everyone to back up. Ivy felt a surge of frustration. Did they not see the urgency? Her heart pounded as she fought the urge to shout, to urge them to act before it was too late. "Get back, please. Let them work." The words poured from Jason, his strident tone borrowing nerves from the very air around them. The crowd momentarily parted, creating a small sanctuary for the chaotic scene unfolding below, but as soon as the officers stepped closer, the air thickened with dread. Ivy noticed a strange shift in Mr. Green, his smirk fading into an unreadable expression. No, she thought frantically, not now. Don't give up on us." Suddenly, one of the officers leaned closer, peering down at Mr. Green with scrutiny. "What was wrong with him?" he demanded, looking to Ivy for answers. "Is he unconscious?" Her heart raced. "No. He needs CPR." Ivy cried, her voice breaking as she fought to keep her composure. The officers exchanged confused glances, and the maid paused for just a heartbeat, her hands hovering above Mr. Green's chest. Was he drugged? What caused this? One officer pressed, his tone aggressive as if searching for someone to blame. "What does it matter?" Jason interjected, his voice rising in frustration. "We need to save him." The commotion roiled around them like a storm threatening to devour everything in its path. Tension crackled, and Ivy felt like she was drowning. With every passing second, as Mr. Green's breathing grew shallower, her resolve faltered. She recalled the whispers of secrets shared only in the shadows, dark dealings lurking behind the grandeur. And then, it happened. Mr. Green's body jolted. The faint pulse of life surged through his frame just as a cacophony of panicked shouts emerged from the crowd. A slow, shadowy figure slipped into the back of the hall, their silhouette coiling within the chaos. Ivy squinted, her heart thumping wildly as she caught sight of the newcomer. It was a woman, dressed in an elegant black dress, her eyes cold and calculating, surveying the scene unfolding before her like a predator sizing up its prey. What is she doing here? Ivy thought bitterly, a flash of recognition igniting within her. She couldn't shake the unsettling notion that this woman was tied to the secrets of the evening, the ones that led to this moment of devastation. The officers continued to press for details, but Ivy was lost in a whirlwind of thoughts. Was the smirk on Mr. Green's lips a sign of impending doom or a harbinger of something deeper? Her instincts screamed that there was more to this scene than met the eye. As the maelstrom of questions and revelations swirled around her, Ivy realized she was standing on the brink of a dangerous truth. With growing dread, she wondered, what else lay hidden in the shadows? Just then, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness once more, an ominous prelude to the storm brewing beyond. Would the secrets hidden in the night finally be revealed, or was their torment only beginning? Ivy could barely see a thing as the darkness enveloped the room, panic swirling around her like thick fog. Heart racing, she blinked against the dark, straining to make sense of the chaos. The murmurs rose in intensity, voices blending into a cacophony of fear and uncertainty, but one sound pierced through, the unmistakable thud of someone collapsing to the ground. Is everything okay? Jason's voice cut through the chaos, tinged with urgency. What happened? Can anyone see? The flickering light sputtered to life, revealing a scene that tore Ivy's heart in two. Mr. Green lay limp, his eyes closed, while the maid's hands trembled as they pressed against his chest. Ivy felt fury blossom within her. Why was no one doing anything? They were all just standing there like frightened statues. The shadowy woman lingered at the back, her face still an enigma, and Ivy's gut twisted with the knowledge that her presence must mean something sinister. Stand back. That same officer's voice blasted through the air, jangling each nerve in her body. We're calling for emergency services. In the meantime, we need everyone to calm down. Calm down? How could she possibly calm down? Ivy wanted to scream, to lunge at the officer and shake some sense into him. But instead, she forced herself to breathe, focusing on Mr. Green again. Time felt suspended, each second lasting an eternity, and all she could do was watch as hope faded from his face. A low murmur swept through the crowd as the maid leaned closer, her brow furrowing in concentration. Desperate to keep the hope alive, Ivy turned her attention back to the figures at the rear. The mysterious woman had become bolder, gliding closer to the officers, every step deliberate and composed. What do you know? She demanded, her voice cold as ice. This is no accident. This must be investigated properly. Investigate? Now? Jason echoed, disbelief coursing through his voice. We need a medic, not an interrogator. Exactly, Ivy thought, gnashing her teeth. Every word from the woman was like a dagger, twisting deeper into their plight. Why didn't anyone see what was unfolding? At that moment, a sudden crack resounded through the air. Ivy turned, catching the sight of the officer with his eyes wide. Get back! He shouted again, but it was too late. The crowd gasped and parted, revealing a fresh tableau unfolding before them. The woman had moved with lightning speed, her hand slicing through the air as she reached forward, revealing a small vial gleaming ominously in the flickering lights. Ivy's breath caught. Was she holding something dangerous? The officer lunged to stop her, but the woman stepped back smoothly, a knowing smile spreading across her lips. Stand down. This may be the key to saving him, she announced, her voice calm and unyielding. What? No! Ivy shouted, fear mingling with anger. She looked for Jason, who seemed torn between caution and urgency. The delicate balance of the evening threatened to tilt beyond anyone's control, and Ivy felt the weight of impending chaos pressing in on them. The maid hesitated, her hands shaking as though gripped by doubt, and all Ivy could think was how fragile life truly was. Would this woman's revelation lead to salvation or destruction? The room grew colder, tension cracking like wind snapping branches during a storm that in an instant, the world around her dimmed again. Dewy moisture dripped from the air, mingling with Ivy's mounting dread. Whatever escape the night had promised now lay shrouded in mystery. "What are you going to do?" Ivy breathed, horrified but unable to look away. But all she received was the woman's chilling gaze, unblinking and unwavering, as darkness swallowed them whole once again. In that moment, one question echoed louder than the chaos. Was this the end, or had they only just begun to uncover the shadows? The air thickened with an unbearable tension, making it feel as if the walls were closing in. Ivy's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum, each beat a reminder that time was slipping away. The eerie silence after the lights flickered out again felt heavier, pressing down on her with all the weight of the unknown. Jason's breaths were rapid and shallow next to her, and she could see the veins throbbing in his neck, a mirror of her own dread. How could a room full of people hold their breath like this? And yet they did, all eyes glued to the woman with the vial. Ivy's mind raced. What was in that vial? What did it mean for Mr. Green? The woman tilted her head, that unnerving smile still plastered across her face. "Sometimes, the solution lurks right beneath your nose, masked in shadows," she said, her voice smooth yet dripping with malice. It was as if she relished the fear she had instilled in them all. "Just do it," Ivy shouted, surprising herself with the urgency in her voice. "Just help him." She gestured frantically at the maid, who still hesitated, her hands trembling with uncertainty. The woman's intensity sharpened. "You don't understand. This is not just a cure, it's a revelation. A chance to uncover truths you're too afraid to face." "Truths?" Ivy spat. "What kind of twisted truth justifies endangering a life?" The temperature in the room dropped further, a foreboding chill lacing Ivy's spine. The sounds of the crowd faded, leaving only the heart-wrenching silence that followed her outburst. They all stood captivated, suspended in fear of the unknown. The maid took a shuddering breath. What's in that vial?" Ivy pressed, already hating the answer that might come. "A rare blend," the woman replied, her tone devoid of compassion. "One that can stir a lifeless body back to awareness, but not without its cost." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle like a heavy fog. "It can bring forth dark memories, secrets untold." The shadows around her seemed to deepen, the weight of them pressing down heavily. Ivy's mind rushed with images of Mr. Green, the man who had built an empire, who had wealth beyond measure. But what lay hidden behind those golden gates? "Do you think Mr. Green's demons will remain buried?" The woman continued, her eyes like cold steel. "When he wakes, he may not be the man you remember. What if he doesn't wake at all? What if you kill him?" Jason's voice was shaky, but the defiance in it sent a spark of hope through Ivy. The woman shrugged, her inflection disdainful. "Then the darkness claims him forever. But isn't that a risk worth taking? The truth is always a double-edged sword." "Enough!" Ivy shouted, her voice now hoarse. The simmering anger inside her might have ignited the air. "You're playing the wrong game here, lady." Just as Ivy stood her ground, a loud banging at the door jolted them all. The sound pierced through the silence, the flashes of red and blue lights now painting the walls in urgent hues. A small smattering of conversation erupted as people turned towards the exit. "What's happening?" The maid clutched the vial tighter, her knuckles going white. "We can't wait for anyone else to make a decision." Ivy felt the adrenaline spike within her. It was now or never. "Do you trust her?" She directed her question at the maid, who stood stunned. A rush of voices flooded the room as the pounding grew louder, demanding entry. Time felt terminal, they couldn't afford to be idle. "We need to choose, right now." The maid stared between Ivy and the shadowy woman, her eyes wild with panic. "Make your choice," the woman instructed cryptically, the vial glinting dangerously in the dim light. "But once you do, there's no turning back. You will unleash everything the shadows are hiding. Ivy held her breath, feeling weighty silence close in around her once more. The choice loomed larger than life, and uncertainty clung to her like a shroud. What lay ahead could tear them apart, or it could save them. As the door splintered under the pressure of hands pursuing the truth, Ivy gripped the witching veil with determination. Do it! She screamed at the maid. Choose your destiny. But before she could respond, the doors blasted open, light flooding the gloomy room, illuminating all that they feared. Could they handle the truth when it finally emerged from the shadows? The blinding light from the doorway momentarily washed over the room, illuminating faces twisted in fear and disbelief. Shadows retreated, but something darker lingered in the air, an electric charge of uncertainty. The room was caught in a breathless moment, each heartbeat punctuating the thick atmosphere. Police! Hands where I can see them! A voice boomed from the entrance, slicing through the tension like a knife. The officer stood framed in the doorway, uniform crisp and eyes piercing as they scanned the chaos. Ivy's stomach twisted. What had they stumbled into? The maid recoiled instinctively, the vial almost slipping from her grasp. I can't, she stuttered, desperately looking at Ivy for guidance. Liar! You're all in on this! Shouted a second officer, storming in, his voice a growl. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers skittering across the room like frightened vermin. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Ivy took a step forward, adrenaline replacing her dread. No, wait. She's trying to help Mr. Green. The words raced out of her, desperate to shield the maid from the truth of the chaos that engulfed them. Help? The first officer sneered, glancing at the woman with the vial, whose smile had only widened, a mask of twisted enjoyment. That's quite a coincidence, isn't it? With all the commotion going on, do you think anyone will believe you? The officers exchanged glances, narrowing their eyes on the strange gathering. The room felt tighter now, and Ivy was caught between the impending doom she sensed from both the officers and the woman's haunting presence. What are you doing here? One of them barked at the woman, who remained unfazed, the vial glinting ominously in her grasp. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she replied, an edge of amusement in her voice that sent a shiver down Ivy's spine. Jared, who had been silent, looked frail against the chaos. Mr. Green, he's still. Ivy turned to him, pressing a hand to his arm as if to channel strength into him. We have to do something before it's too late. The urgency propelled her forward. Enough. The second officer shook his head, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. We're doing this the hard way. Step away from her or be prepared to lose whatever semblance of order still exists. Ivy's mind raced. Mr. Green's life hung in the balance, uncertain in the grip of mysteries that begged to be unearthed. But what if the truth had the potential to unravel everything, not just for him but for everyone in the room? Wait! Ivy shouted, her voice ringing against the walls. Her heart thundered as her hands trembled at her sides. If you take her away, and he doesn't wake up, you'll never know the truth. Maybe she can save him. The officers paused, caught in the web of Ivy's desperation, the accusation hanging thickly in the air. Yet the woman's eyes lit up with an unsettling mix of intrigue and malice, her smile unfaltering. Such conviction for a truth that will only scar the mind, she said softly, yet Ivy could feel the weight of her words crushing reality. What if I told you that demise may be less painful than the memories he carries? Shut up! A nearby guest suddenly shouted, breaking through the apprehensive silence. The glimpse of turmoil flickered across the crowd, revealing the fractures forming between them. Do it! I dare you! I dare you to know the truth! The shout echoed around the room, and horror twisted Ivy's gut. Choice is power, the woman hissed, her grip tightening around the vial. But it's a power wielded by those who can bear the weight of what's buried. Sweat beaded on Ivy's forehead, the clash of intentions swirling like a storm. She didn't feel ready for what was about to unravel. Every heartbeat screamed for clarity amidst the chaos as the officers struggled to contain the unpredictable energy in the room. In the delicate balance between salvation and doom, one decisive moment loomed ahead: would they unearth the past, or would it consume them whole? As Ivy fought for control amidst the rising tide, an unfamiliar voice broke free from her lips, carrying an unexpected weight. "I can't let him die before we know the truth." But who would pay the price for those words? And at that very moment, reality shifted, setting off an unseen chain of events as Mr. Green's fate and the livelihoods entwined with it hung precariously in the balance. What dangerous revelations awaited just beyond the threshold of choice? The chaos in the grand hall reached a fever pitch as Ivy felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. The air was electric with tension, each pulse resonating through her. The police stood firm, skeptical eyes resting on the woman with the vial, while hushed whispers ricocheted off the ornate walls. What had they become? A courtroom, a battleground, or perhaps a confessional? As the officers stepped forward, resolute but clearly perplexed, Ivy stood her ground. "No. We cannot turn away. He needs help." "Help?" the lead officer barked, skepticism dripping from his tone. "This whole scene is a circus. Someone call it in." The maid shifted uneasily, the small vial still clutched in her trembling hands. "I want to let him die without trying," she cried, the fire of determination igniting her resolve. Ivy saw that emotion reflected back at her, the sheer will to reshape their reality faintly flickering before it could be extinguished. "Choose. Choose now," Ivy urged again, the pressure building within her chest. "You can either save him or stand by and watch him die." The woman's expression morphed into one of contempt, almost delighted by the agony unfolding before her. "Do you even understand the risks? The buried truths? He isn't just a man, he's a harbinger of everything hidden beneath your so-called luxury. Maybe those hidden truths are exactly what we need." Ivy shouted back, her voice slicing through the tension like flint against steel. But the other guests were losing their grip on reality. "What is this madness?" someone shouted accusingly. More panic washed over the gathering. Ivy sensed that something had shifted within the room's energy. Fear mingled dangerously with curiosity. "Ivy, this is insane." Her mother's voice cut through the noise. Mrs. Harrington clutched her pearls, eyes wide in disbelief. But Ivy was done listening to fear. Jason stepped in, positioning himself between Ivy and the officers, determination lining his features. "If we're going to save anyone here, it's going to be Mr. Green. What's in that vial could be the only chance, whether you believe it or not. So, we gamble one life for another?" One officer spat back, brow furrowed in disbelief. "Sometimes, we don't have the luxury of choices. Sometimes the truth demands a price," Jason shot back, voice steady. The weighted silence hung heavy in the air before Ivy boldly declared, "I want to let fear dictate our fate." The second officer stepped closer to the woman, narrowing his gaze. "What's in it for you?" The dark aura of certainty swirled around her, and for the first time, the woman hesitated. In a split second, Ivy knew they had to act. "Enough of this. If you want to help, you're only letting him slip further away." Ivy felt the truth erupt through her like wildfire. "If you want us to confront the darkness, then let us lay it bare." With a sudden burst of courage, Ivy lunged forward, waving her hand toward the maid. "Do it. Help him." The maid hesitated just long enough for Ivy to feel panic clawing at her insides once again. But that fire was still there. "We deserve to know. Everyone." Ivy motioned to the others, determination firming behind her words. "Let the truth come to light." The police shifted uneasily, caught in the tension without resolution. The woman read the room again, a savage glimmer in her eyes. "Very well. You're all complicit in this decision. But remember, once the past returns, it leaves nothing untouched. With a nod, the maid uncorked the vial, sealing their fate. The moment hung suspended, as if even the universe leaned in, waiting with bated breath. As she initiated the administration of the mysterious substance to Mr. Green, time stretched endlessly, the world narrowing to that singular act of unveiling. It felt heavy, like fate itself was teetering on the edge, holding its breath awaiting revelation. Then, a shudder broke through Mr. Green's body. Gasps echoed around the room. Ivy's heart leaped, suspended in anticipation. Moments turned to eons as whispers of past secrets and buried memories swirled like a tempest around them all. Finally, Mr. Green's eyes shot open, revealing a storm within them, dark and tumultuous. He blinked, confusion washing over his features, haunting glimpses shadowing his gaze. "Where am I?" he croaked, voice breaking like shattered glass. "Mr. Green. You're safe," the maid exclaimed, but Ivy could see the answer lurking behind his eyes, swirling amongst the remnants of his memories. As he caught sight of Ivy, understanding dawned, pain etched alongside regret. It was like watching the sun rise only to find darkness lurking within its glow. Something had shifted irrevocably. A slow, knowing smile crept across his lips again, the mask of innocence faltering. "You think you're ready for what comes next?" Ivy felt her stomach churn, as the all-consuming dread of the unknown tightened its grip around her heart. The truths of the night were unraveling, washing over them like waves lashing at the shore. What surface tensions would surface? What would the cost be? The crowd stood frozen, breaths collectively held, the power of knowledge hanging precariously. But there was no turning back. This was their new beginning, and the darkness would find no sanctuary. They would face it together. "Face it, Ivy," Jason urged, a fierce fire now burning behind his eyes. "Whatever happens, we move forward together." And together they would uncover everything, no matter how entangled and raw the truths of the night ultimately became. It was time to embrace whatever lay ahead, for the truth had come gargling through the shadows, and there would be no more silence. Rising from the floor of their collective darkness, Ivy stepped forward, determined to confront the intricate web woven into their existence, and within that charged moment, they learned that every truth, no matter how painful, bore the seeds of liberation. The night had become their crucible, a transition ridden with uncertainty and the promise of rebirth. With hearts wide open, they braced for the truths that awaited them. Have you loved this story? You need to subscribe right now so you don't miss any exclusive additional tales. Smash the like button now and feed that algorithm. Don't forget to flood the comments section below with your thoughts, feelings, and theories about this spectacular ending. And be a true friend, share this video with at least 5 people who need to experience this conclusion. Let us keep the conversation alive.